Hello, everybody. Welcome to the TechRaptor podcast. I'm Robert Scarpanito, your features editor.
Andrew Rutten, editor-in-chief.
Rutledge Doggett, site founder.
Andrew Stretch, the CEO editor.
CEO editor. Rhett, you better watch out.
What do you call yourself? Do you call yourself CEO? I don't know. What does your staff page say?
CEO and founder.
It should say CEO and founder, yeah. And then my email signature
I think we
has
need to get a hot
editor.
new model, like our story we're going to talk about.
You say that look old now?
Rut's talking about making his own crypto too much. He's got the embezzlement case that was just dropped. I don't know why. Fucking cops can't get anything right.
You don't know this, but every other message he sends in Slack is about Sheepcoin. We don't know why. And no one responds to it.
He actually has a feature in Slack that like links to his wallet to donate at the end of every message.
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
It's like a signature, but for IMs. It's really weird.
Yeah.
When one of us at TechRaptor isn't actively writing an article, we're hooked up to a whole bunch of hamster wheels that's just generating Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the greenest way to generate green coin or Bitcoin, though.
It's also producing electricity somehow that he's selling back to the grid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be fair, isn't that what most sites are doing at this point? Like, CNET's editor-in-chief stepped down to handle Web3 or
being
something
the AI
weird.
editor, the AI article editor.
Yeah, the NFTs for writing.
I have to bring up that April Fool's joke we had again, that article about the journalist dying and the robots taking over, because it's becoming true. We wrote that 7 years ago or something.
And now it's all true.
Yeah, everybody was... what I said was just absolutely boneheaded stupid on that reply about authors dying, but...
yeah, it's rare that you say anything boneheaded and stupid.
It seems like I might have been well ahead of the curve.
And this is why we need a CEO editor.
You have to edit everything that I say, basically.
I will not forget the day I walked into that when that happened.
Yeah.
It's like you.
Yeah.
It hasn't been brought up publicly in about 6 months, so things are going well.
You're keeping it alive, though, because you're bringing it up publicly now.
Yeah.
This week we're going to talk about Like a Dragon Ishin. We're also going to talk about PsychOdyssey, that documentary from Double Fine, which is pretty interesting. But first, we're going to dive into some news because Square Enix has a new CEO, or will soon get a new CEO. The old CEO, Yosuke Matsuda, is departing and will be replaced by Takashi Kiryu, not related to the Like a Dragon protagonist.
Totally different company.
Totally that's Saga. But this will not affect their current game release schedule, nor will it affect their Web 3.0 strategy, which is still slated to continue. So give me all the NFTs.
Probably gonna ramp it up. We're being honest.
Yeah, what was his title before? He was high up. Like, it's not like he's some random dude.
I think he was a chief strategy officer or something.
Yeah, so like he was in on the decision. So people are like, oh, it's gonna be a breath of fresh air. Square Enix is gonna be totally new. I don't know about that.
Yeah, and this is also amid the news too that Luminous Productions, is that the name of the studio, right? The Final Fantasy 15 and the Forspoken studio is gonna be merged back into the Square Enix company, which I didn't realize how separate it was. But
I didn't realize either. I just assumed it was kind of just another development division.
I mean, it's probably the same kind of thing that happened with like Vicarious Visions, like going from being Vicarious Visions to just being like Activision Studio, whatever.
Yeah,
Activision Studio number 162.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Square's always doing weird shit like that because, like, it was their first game they did was Final Fantasy 15. It's like, so obviously it's a Square team. For some reason, they needed to have their own name, and now they don't. They're like, yeah, we're done with
isn't like the normal teams that work on the Final Fantasy games weirdly named as well?
Well, they have like business division,
yeah,
creative division.
A lot of the big companies, a lot of big Japanese companies, like because Nintendo does the same stuff. Like a lot of times you'll see it be developed by Nintendo, but they have specific teams that do specific things. They have very hard to follow names because it's just like Division B, Division C, or whatever.
Yeah, they're almost like it kind of feels like internal code names instead of like a branded studio, out front.
So I guess when we hear about that happening, it's just been like, we'll just give those like game studios the name of like the city that they're in.
Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah.
It's mostly for like employment and tax and probably like revenue forecasting and generation.
Yeah, 100%. It's just internal names that are public.
And I'm sure it's a messaging thing too, because they can say published by or made by Nintendo or whatever, and it's just Nintendo. Made by Square Enix, it's just Square Enix, even though it's this team or that team or this team or whatever.
I'd argue it's a bit more like that with Nintendo. I feel like Nintendo is very much, they want to be the monolith, right? Not to be confused with Monolith Software, but they want to be like, they are Nintendo. Whereas Square Enix, I think they're a little bit more like, Luminous, because we've got the Luminous engine. We want like...
I'm sure that was part of the decision, because they have a weird boner for making engines. And iterating on them.
What, the Luminous engine, like 3 games have been made with it?
Well, I don't think they actually made a game with it. They made the engine and then like, we're gonna take some of the technology from it and use it in other engines.
Yeah.
Okay, no, it was used for the Agnes Philosophy and Witch Chapter 0 tech demo, which were gorgeous. It was used for Final Fantasy 15 and it was used for Spoken.
From what I recall, though, if you read more into those, is that it wasn't like that's the base engine they used. They just used some tech from the Luminous stuff. I think the only thing it's fully been used for is that tech demo, which was really cool at the time. And it's like, we're not going to make a game using it now. It's what the fuck?
What?
They spent a shit ton of money making this engine. Yeah, it's one of the most bizarre things. Because
because Kingdom Hearts 3 was announced to be on Luminous Engine, and then they had so many fucking development issues, and they just like 4 years into production, let's swap it to Unreal.
Basically. I think Kingdom Hearts 4 is also in Unreal, or have they not said yet?
I think that they're just gonna be. I would not be surprised if they just stuck with Unreal.
It's gotta be an Unreal 5 game probably by now.
Yeah, because it looks largely similar, just prettier than 3. But to go back to the new CEO, the reason why Yosuke Matsuda is stepping down, he clarified and added that this is not a direct correlation to the recent performance of the company. It's particularly just that he's been meaning to step down for some time. He's approaching the 10 years as CEO mark, and he's like, this is a good time for me to pass the baton to a new generation. That is the current official statement.
We can't say that to know what's going on internally, but that's a very nice way to let him bow out if he is being forced out.
I thought I saw somebody mention something about the board not being happy with how quickly they had moved on the Web3 stuff too, and how there's basically been very little.
I mean, maybe, but the Web3 plans are still in the works.
Well, I'm wondering if the new CEO is gonna push it faster.
It's okay. They're just letting him out of the company quietly before any insider trading comes up.
He's got to go fast.
Like, damn it, we can't do this again.
So we're unsure of where Takashi Kiryu is gonna take this next, right? It's hard to say, and it's also kind of hard to say how much like direct impact the CEO really will have on things. Like, you don't play an Assassin's Creed game and you look at a thing and you're like, Yves Guillermo did that. It's kind of more general
not
direction.
with the big companies. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some changes because this marks a change of whatever it might be, and maybe it is something that the board or other execs are like, okay, we need to shift the company in this direction. We think this is the guy to lead that shift. So it could be something like that. Who knows?
For the end user, it's gonna mean nothing different.
Not gonna
change.
I don't, at least not for the foreseeable future, right? Like we can still expect Final Fantasy 16. You can still expect that 7 reunion, rebirth, whatever. The
7 remake 2.
7
I think it's reunion.
No, Reunion was Crisis Core, wasn't
Oh
it?
shit!
Yeah.
Oh god! Yeah, I want
It's
to forget
Rebirth
that.
for remake too.
Yeah, it's
wanna-
Rebirth for remake
That's right. I
too.
want to forget
Yeah.
that garbage game. That
And I think they're
every
aiming for
chick
what, like
playing.
holiday season 2023 for that.
I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Should be out by the end of the year.
Well,
Right.
obviously, Square's in some kind of turmoil with them selling off, pretty big chunk of the company.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
not too long
speaking
ago.
of Luminous, I don't think that I've seen any direct sales numbers for Forspoken, but between
Yeah.
the issues that it already had, sorry, not issues, between the pre-release negative buzz for various shitty political take reasons, coupled with the fact that the game came out and it was a bit of a wet fart. Square Enix is looking to shape up. We'll see whether they announce Forspoken is as much a failure as Guardians of the Galaxy, though.
Yeah, or the OG Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very least, you can tell just by looking and playing, even just the Forspoken demo, they put a lot of money into that video
Yes.
game.
Yes, they did.
So I'm sure they're expecting or wanting a really big return on that investment, and I don't know if that's the game to do it.
No, I don't think so. I highly doubt it sold well or is selling well, and I think for Square, what's really going to tell them if they're all that dire is how well the two Final Fantasies are going to do. Thank God they have both of them coming soon.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be a huge bump on their financials for this year.
Mm-hmm.
Probably much needed.
Those mainline Final Fantasies have kind of not done super hot. Like Final Fantasy 15 was a big game, but not like as big as they probably hoped then either.
Yeah, I feel like 15 was a slow burn, and I think part of it was that because wasn't it like it kept getting more features? Like it's not until 2 or 3 years after it came out that you can swap between all 4 party members, and like
they kept getting stuff. They canceled some DLC for it at some point. They like reworked one of the toward the end chapter stuff, and
they also came into 15 weirdly like gung ho with all of like the crossover and the tie-in stuff. Because like the
Cup Noodle.
Yeah, well, the Cup Noodle stuff was weird. It's like I really enjoyed the Kingsglaive movie. It was crazy to me that such a major plot point as the fall of the king and the home city was a 10-second like quick running flash in the game. And they're just like, oh well, if you want to, like, I was expecting like a pop out, like a news ticker to show up, and like, if you want to see the whole story, go watch our movie.
To go watch buy the movie.
It's got Jesse Pinkman in it.
Yeah, I think that was a weird decision, and it's seemingly we're 3 months away from it, but seemingly so far, Final Fantasy 16 is not going the route of like, and also watch this 2-hour feature-length movie to get the real story, right?
No, they are saying some worrying stuff of like, we want it to be, a little darker, a little more serious, and it's like, this can go like one of two
chaos.
ways. Yeah, this could go one of two ways here.
It doesn't look like it's going the campy chaos way, though.
No, it does not. But it's like, is it going to be taking itself too seriously? And it's like, oh no. Final Fantasy is not a take itself too seriously game. Like it's ridiculous with moments it zeroes in on every once in a while.
Yeah,
and that's kind of.
It's always had dark themes to it.
Yeah,
it's never been like, hey, this entire thing is just super serious.
Yeah, like I'm very curious because I think there was like a shot in one of the trailers where like a chocobo gets blood on it, and there was something about that just like stood out to me as like, oh, that the chocobo is like the innocent part of the.
This isn't your grandmother's Final Fantasy.
Like nothing bad happens around a chocobo.
No.
But I guess now it's
just race them.
Maybe we'll get those like gratuitous blood shots like in a Tarantino movie where he'll shoot to some flower that gets a bunch of blood thrown on it.
Just like a whole bunch of chocobo feet.
Yeah, and then just smeared across feathers. Just an absurd amount.
I think the worst thing we ever see happen to a chocobo is the commentary on the chocobo obesity crisis. But that's really it.
Yeah.
The big chocobos.
Yeah, now there'll be chocobo races, but there'll be a really long like side quest about how they're poorly treated, and you have to save it's not, and then there's gonna be some farm that's gonna make some statement about animal mistreatment.
That's dark.
That's right.
I think you just described how you get Epona in Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. Yes, you're gonna see the poor caged chocobos. They're gonna be so cramped and can't move, and they're gonna have plucked feathers and shit.
Poor little guys.
I mean, they definitely eat chocobo, right?
I hope so.
Would it taste like a giant chicken?
I would assume as much.
You know how, like, when you're a kid, when like you'd watch like the Flintstones or like other cartoons, and they'd have the massive like chicken leg, but those don't exist, or like turkey legs.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's what it is for the chocobo. That's whipping a massive chocobo leg out to eat on.
I mean, yeah, if you think about it, that chocobo leg, you'd need like two hands. It'd be like the size of a club.
Yeah, it'd be huge.
You could feed a whole family with just a leg.
Yeah. And why if they'd be dumb not to?
Yeah.
Yo, I bet there's some great Final Fantasy monsters to eat out there.
Let's rank the best ones.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
what monster do you want to eat the most in Final Fantasy? Discuss.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a bomb would be really like good and spicy. Probably be like a tougher.
Oh, it would be industrial tasting. Ugh.
Yeah. Okay, but what about the ice bombs? Those would be good in a smoothie or like in a milkshake.
No.
Blend it up.
I don't know. I'm just eating cactuars. That's it.
The cactuar juice.
Yeah. I'm juicing them.
Can't find anything about Final Fantasy dishes that ever existed. With
there is a Final Fantasy 14 cookbook. That is a real thing.
Yeah. Is there a chocobo dish in that cookbook?
I don't know, but we can find out. Behemoths, I bet those would taste pretty gamey, but
yeah,
you know,
they'd be tough. They're all muscle.
They're all muscle.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I can't really.
Cactuar would be a tricky food.
Yeah.
I mean, the flan are pretty easy. I bet I know what those would taste like.
Yeah, but you usually find dirty spaces. So do you want to?
It's true. They normally are in like the sewers and shit. Yeah, that's the slime.
Some oglops.
Gesundheit.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Square Enix. They're just in a passing the torch kind of moment. I don't expect that to change much in the next, like what you can expect from Square Enix, especially like on the ground. Maybe in the next few years, this might affect Web 3.0, whatever their plans manifest to be in that space. But for now, we just have to wait and see what they do. We also got some Dead Island 2 footage. We got 14 unadulterated minutes in Hell A with Dead Island 2. Where that's really what they're calling it. I'm pretty sure it's in the branding, right? Hell A.
I think so.
Like Hell-A. So yeah, we got 14 minutes of a game that looks like Dead Island 1 remastered.
That was my first thought when I pulled it up. It's like this looks like an Xbox 360 game that I would have loved to have played a decade ago.
You can. It's called Dead Island. I think it's only fair for us to talk about it because the last time we got some Dead Island 2 news, I think we brought up those screenshots that
I'm still convinced to this day that those screenshots were not organically taken in game.
I doubt
those were Photoshop.
There's no way.
That was absolutely someone saw like some environment and then they totally put whatever enemy or whatever fucking zombie in it.
There was
it had that weird
layering it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I guess the lighting just wasn't done yet.
It's the lighting, exactly what it was. It just it wasn't matching. It looked
terrible.
I will say the gameplay looks better than that screenshot led me to believe. I do.
It's a game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it actually looks like a solid video game. Like it will function, and like
okay.
Like from a functional technical perspective.
It's technically functional.
Yeah, it's like technically rock solid.
It's
put it on the box.
Functions.
It functions.
So many zombies to kill.
You can hit new game and it continue. You can make a new save file.
Yeah, cutscenes play. Gameplay happens.
That's actually a pretty big accomplishment nowadays. If you don't, if you can actually get through a lot of that stuff.
If you can get through a cutscene.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if there's not these insane bugs.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
It's not a small feat for some reason now.
Yeah. So Rut, I know you said earlier in the pre-show that you are actually excited. Surprisingly excited, I think was the words you used for Dead Island 2.
This is some Elex looking bullshit. What are you talking about? Of course he's excited. This is right up his alley.
I mean, I enjoy the games that are kind of mindless at times, like where you're just kind of just killing stuff and exploring a world. And
like when you play it, you want to be the zombie.
Yeah.
Like Dynasty Warriors 4.
I will leave. I will not stand for this slander.
Muso games are pretty mindless.
Yeah.
How dare you?
They're built to be mindless.
There's strategy.
They're pure number go up games.
I will not stand for this.
Tell me I'm wrong. I rest my case.
You run across Lubu and you tell me what you do if it's a numbers go up moment. It's a shit your pants moment. All right. That's called emotions in video games. Okay.
Yeah. Fuck The Last of Us.
That's right.
This is where there's true raw emotion.
Yeah.
When are we getting the HBO Dynasty Warriors series then?
Dude.
Yeah.
Think of all the guitar riffs that would be going on and the insane shit that'd be happening. That'd be awesome.
You're not making it sound better.
I think if I wanted to see anywhere do anything Dynasty Warriors related, it would have to be like Bollywood or something, where you get those crazy action scenes.
That would be pretty
just
sick.
like CGI humans flying everywhere.
Didn't they just put out a Dynasty Warriors movie? I think it was made in. Was it a Chinese movie, like a company? I think. I want to say that this came out.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was something like with that sort of.
But I think it was called Dynasty Warriors because I know Romance of the Three Kingdoms, like what it's based off, is a very big text and like big thing in China and all around the world. But
Hong Kong film.
Yeah, I thought something like that.
Yeah.
What were the reviews?
The reception from the
Not
box
so
office.
good.
Rotten Tomatoes.
I doubt it's even got a rating on there.
2.5 out of 5.
Oof.
Writing for Polygon, Todd Harper believed the film struggled between its adaptation of Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Dynasty Warriors. He felt it was inconsistent in the plot, sometimes presented as historical period drama and sometimes as wuxia, creating a deep frustration at how scattershot the film is.
Bummer. They have like 12 games that all sell the same exact story in the same order.
Hey, how about this though? He praised the action sequences and choice of music, so you still might get those great guitar riffs.
Like 80 or 90% of what you need.
That's what the game is.
Yeah. So Dead Island 2 also has some pretty bad guitar riffs in that.
Well, I'm not. Are you saying that the ones in Dynasty Warriors are bad?
So yeah, there's that little quest in the footage.
It's getting defensive.
Where you're like, there's someone who's just a shredder, like surfer bro dude, and you're just trying to, I guess, like put batteries in his gate so it closes. It felt very like 10 years ago, not quite Fetch Quest, but like
it's very Dead Island in terms of that first one was very like, go here, do this, then go here, do this for this person, and just mow zombies down along the way. And I think if you like that, and I did, it is appealing. It looks, very nice in comparison. You get nice upgraded graphics for the most part, and it looks like they added a lot of kind of additional features in terms of how you can take out zombies, abilities, weaponry, and stuff like that. So it's the first one was very melee focused.
Yeah, you didn't get guns.
And this one looks like there's a fair
right?
amount of weaponry that you can choose from. Like I think one of them was like a sledgehammer and just yeeted a zombie.
Yeah, and I will say the trailer made the sledgehammer look and sound satisfying. Like the crunch and the weight of the animation was like, oh, that doesn't look super weighty. But there was so the character they were playing as in it was the Irish lady. I forget her name, but she had this power where she can like smack the ground and do like a shockwave. And I will say, like from a gameplay aspect, that's like, okay, that's fun, that's interesting, that's neat, whatever. from a animations perspective, that was like the lamest like punch the ground I've seen in a long time. That looks like it did not have any weight to it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a 10 out of 10 game. I think it's going to, for people who like just kind of mowing down zombies and what the original Dead Island offered, it looks like it's going to be that and then some, which is, I mean, not a bad thing. It's definitely its own.
So why should I play that and not like Dying Light, which has like other shit going on, like interesting?
No, I haven't played
movement.
Dying Light. Well, no, I played the second one. I didn't play the first.
Yeah, because Dying Light 2 has all the parkour stuff.
Parkour,
From what I remember, Dead Island
killing a bunch of zombies.
Yeah, the OG Dead Island didn't really have like parkour, right? It was mostly just running around and jumping.
It was Far Cry with zombies.
Yeah,
and less Far Cry shit to do.
I did not click with Dead Island 2 or Dying Light 2 at all.
Dying Light 1 was where it was at, because like Dying Light and Dead Island came out roughly around the same time, I believe.
Yes,
3-4 years apart.
Within a couple of years of each other, I think.
Yeah. I played Dying Light first, and then like Dead Island came to Games with Gold or something, so I played that, and it was just like, I'm gonna go back to Dying Light because that's doing this but better. But yeah, knowing that this game has been in some sort of like development state or development limbo since 2013, I wonder how much of kind of they got set in the structure of the game back then. And then as the world has moved around them, just, you know, the game that would have been very relevant at the time is now not as relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the strongest thing this game has, I think the dismemberment stuff kind of looks pretty neat, but it reminds me also of like Doom Eternal's dismemberment sort of vibe. Otherwise, it does kind of look like a paint by the numbers zombie, you know, slice them up, smack them up, shoot them up.
Yep.
Kill zombies, complete quests. Yeah. Save Helle.
Yeah, and the writing.
I hope they lean into the Helle stuff, like that vibe, because that's what will make it more appealing, I think.
Yep.
I hope so too, but I hope the writing, I hope that there's more to it than what they gave us a taste of, because that to me was very like kind of eye-rolly
gameplay though, right?
I mean, there was a bit of discussion with like that guitar character and his partner, that I was very like, they're trying to be funny and I am not here for this kind of vibe.
Well, so they're Forspoken it up, huh?
Yeah, Forspoken was maybe better with the jokes. I don't know.
I don't know. It's just that's now going to be the go-to game people talk about when it's got bad
cringe jokes. Yeah, it's for joking.
Well, if only they were for joking.
Well, it's like if any movie nowadays dares to have their characters quip with each other in the middle of a sequence, it's just like, God, Joss Whedon all over this. It's just like, come on, guys.
The Marvelification of Hollywood.
This guy said a joke. It's like, have you guys seen the original Star Wars? They're doing shit like left and right.
Well, no, they were inspired by Iron Man, though. I know they came out like 30 years before.
It came out, 31 years after
they predicted
Star Wars came out.
Let's shift over and talk about some games and also a documentary. Auden, you want to talk about PsychOdyssey, that thing from Double Fine? Yeah.
I will say I'm not a big psychonauts dude. Like, I played the first one. I've not played the second one. I like that they exist because they're cool and unique and definitely have a unique vision, and I'm always down for cool shit like that. But this documentary, they made it, I think the first bit of footage from it's from 2015. So they were filming the entire time. So like it ends with or it begins with them just like doing a little, they had some footage of them making the original Psychonauts, so they started with that, like what was the development like for that, and it was basically like hanging by a fucking thread the entire time. Like Tim Schafer was at his wit's end because he's like, I don't know what's gonna happen, that kind of thing. So that's the first episode, but then it moves into, okay, now we can start talking about Psychonauts 2 and stuff. and I had forgotten about it. I remembered as soon as they started talking about it, though, that they had done a Psychonauts VR game that was like a bridge between 1 and 2.
Oh, like
The
Rhombus of Ruin.
Mystery.
Yeah, Rhombus of Ruin.
Rhombus of Ruin.
And so it starts talking with the development of that, and how the company was excited to go back to Psychonauts because it'd been, at that point, 12, 13 years since they'd done Psychonauts, because they'd done a bunch of stuff in between. But anyway, what I wanted to bring it up is that it's such a, it's pretty in depth in what it lets you see in terms of making a game. And I think if anybody's interested in kind of how things are made, definitely watch it. And I think what makes it a lot more watchable for some people, because that could sound kind of dry, because like we're looking at this technical stuff. It's not very, like, if you look at a dev environment of a game, it's like not interesting to look at. Or
it looks a lot like an office, really.
Yeah, they're having an office, they're in an office and they're having boring business discussions or whatever. But what makes this a little more enjoyable to watch, I think, is that like Tim Schafer is himself a character, and he's just a comedic dude. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of the team at Double Fine also they all kind of have a similar vibe. It's not super serious. Like they'll have very frank discussions in this. They're very open, but they're definitely they like to joke with each other a lot. And I think that makes it a little easier to watch. For some people, that if it's like, oh, this is just too dry for information.
Are you saying that this documentary has been Marvelified? Would you say Joss Whedon had a hand in
That's right.
making this?
Tim Schafer, he actually calls Joss Whedon and asks him for permission. Yeah. Well, it's super interesting because it gets into the business side of stuff, the money side of stuff, even just to the basics of like when they're starting to make this VR game, like want to make just a very simple proof of concept, like 5-minute experience, what they call it. So it's just like, here's a couple of mechanical ideas we have, and we just want to see it play out in this very, like, basically it was a T hallway, and that was it, of guys walking around. We're like, this is all we want to play with, to see if this actually even makes sense. Because they say that's, if you say something out loud, it's like, oh, that sounds fun, but is it fun? Like I can say like, oh yeah, like hitting this guy with a sword, that's fun, but okay, but if how we execute it, is it? I don't know. Like, could it be like something that seems no brainer? Like with their little demo idea was Raz is stuck behind a cell, and he has the ability to look through people's eyes, clairvoyance, and you could use that to bounce around, like look through a guard's eyes and someone else to move yourself around the map to get to something. And like they wanted to distract the guard with a sandwich that was a crab that eventually walks out and like runs away, and the guard's got to chase this thing. So they're like the idea when someone had it, like, that sounds fun, but we don't know, like, right, until we do it. So it's a lot of and this is still really early on in this documentary series. I think that will be eye-opening for a lot of people. If like they have ideas that aren't going to pan out, that they're going to just scrap completely, that took a lot of time. So there's a lot of iteration in games that I don't think people realize that's where a lot of time goes, because they don't know. It sounds really easy to be like, yeah, we're gonna make a knight in shining armor game where knights are fighting people and you go save the princess or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's an idea for a game, but that's how do you do it? Yeah, it's like that, like it's like that thing, like how to draw an owl and here's the rest of the fucking owl kind of thing when you have an idea for a game and getting there. But they just get into super interesting, cool discussions that I find fascinating. Like when they're very early on having early concept art stuff, talking about like what does the art of Psychonauts look like, and like any thing that's created out there has like some art design stuff, like here's certain criteria, like this is what makes this Psychonauts, this is what makes this The Witcher, this makes this whatever, right? They follow some guidelines. It's just interesting to have to see all the artists sitting around talking about what that is and why they made this change, or why this isn't as dynamic or interesting look at as this, or what this, and like it's just interesting to hear them talk because they're very good at what they do. But one thing what's that?
I was gonna say, has there been a member of the development team yet that has come out as an unknown heel I normally find when I'm watching video game related documentaries, there's somehow some kind of rivalry that comes up.
A little bit of kayfabe.
No, but it's an interesting time for Double Fine when they're starting this, because they've gotten a little bigger, and they're like some of the people that have been there a while. They mentioned like, when we first started, it was the whole company working on one thing. Like there wasn't we didn't have multiple projects going. It was we're all doing Psychonauts, we're all doing Brutal Legend, we're all doing whatever. There's no A team, B team, C team.
Brutal Legend was a great game.
Yeah, great.
That just reminded me of that.
Yeah.
Oh, that was such a fucking good game.
Such a silly game.
Very not surprised Double Fine made it. kind of game. But it was interesting talking to hear them talk about like, okay, we got this VR game which is supposed to be relatively small, like one level just to bridge two games together. And they're like, well, this is kind of getting bigger, but now they're wanting to ramp up Psychonauts 2, and like people, the good people that Tim, like they have Tim come in, like he's pretty involved, but he's also doing a bunch of other shit because he's the head of the company.
Yeah.
And so he'll come in and like hear a good idea of this. I can't remember her name, but she's a concept artist, and she was just in on the stuff, and she had really good design ideas. And like he keyed in on that, and they're like, everybody's like, fuck, he's totally stealing her from our team, like fuck for Psychonauts 2. And so like stuff like that happening where people are shuffling from project to project that they have going on at any one time, and it's interesting to see that happen. But I think I just watched an episode, I think it's episode 4. Well, I watched a little bit ago, but episode 4 was they were talking about creating the Fig page for Psychonauts 2, because remember they did the crowdfunding for it, right? With their own crowdfunding company with Fig.
Remember that?
And they were looking through the initial like campaign page and like the going through what was going to be the copy on it and stuff. And somebody described Psychonauts as like not selling well, like this critically acclaimed but didn't sell well kind of game, and it like irked Tim. Because he talked about it in one of the earlier episodes. He's like, I'd really get over that because it bothered me forever. He's like, it actually sold well for us. Like we were fine. Like it did well, but for whatever reason, people had bigger, aspirations for it. And now that's become, we're like the poster child for a game that didn't sell well. That's creative kind of thing. He's like, I hate that. And he didn't want that on the page. Like, I don't want to have that out there. Because he even mentioned like that's one of the first interview questions that they would get about it. It was like, oh, so but didn't sell very well, huh? And it's like, well, he had to train himself not to be defensive about that, because it's just they're not right about it. Like there's different kind of context. Is it selling as much as a Mario game? Fucking no.
But what does?
Sold, but it sold well enough. But it was interesting to see. Like I wish I had written it down, the specific thing they were talking about, but like criticisms people have about companies or games, or the general vibe that's said about something, or you think you figured out why they think or did something they did. They've absolutely had a long discussion about whatever you're saying. No question. Like you see them in these meetings having very, very like building block level, like very tiny parts of something of the game, like they're having a long discussion about that. Like they've come to that decision for whatever reason. Like you're not revealing anything to them they likely don't already know,
right?
Like that kind of thing. So it's interesting to think about for like people that want to criticize stuff. I think to get some insight into seeing a team work through it. It's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone ever would say. I mean, anyone who's at least moderately aware of this stuff, they would never. Game devs.
I would think so, but it's a lot different when I could say that I know that just because I generally understand that to be the case. But now to actually have an concrete example in my face, I know it for sure now. I can point to why. Kind of thing. I think that'd be valuable for people to see, even if they already do understand that. I think it lets you see it up and close and personal.
Right. Yeah, it's something that I've been meaning to watch, because I've seen before the God of War one, like the 2017 or 2018 God of War, that documentary they did. It's only like hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. It's on Sony's or the PlayStation YouTube channel for free if you want to watch it. But that, I think it was an interesting kind of behind the scenes peek, but also felt so condensed that, you know, it's like, how much did we really get to see? You know? Yeah.
Well, and this is like, I think it's 32 episodes, and they range from like 15 minutes to the last episode. I think it's like an hour and a half, but like they're anywhere between like 15 to 45 minutes an episode, roughly. But like you get to see stuff like someone leave the company that'd been there for a long time. I haven't watched it yet, but I've been reading stuff about this documentary. Like later on, it gets really tense because there's an obvious member that grates with everybody else, and you get to see that build up, and then the firing of that person, and then the immediate reaction of the entire company to the firing of that person. And so all that kind of, and then like Psychonauts 2 didn't have the smoothest development. So you get to see into that, and they had money stuff that was coming up with that. It became an expensive thing. All these kind of things going on that I don't think people think about. They just see an end product. I think it's easy to criticize the end product. And I'm not saying that means you can't criticize them anymore. But I think any context you can have to talk about games a little better is worth it.
Game development's not easy. I mean, it's not. It's funny to kind of follow dev circles and everybody be like, why do people still make game design documents, as an example? Because like back in the day, a game design document made sense because things were much simpler. But these days, you almost throw that game design document out the window pretty quickly once you start getting in and realize, okay, yeah, this doesn't work the way we thought it would. And then you've got essentially years of that. Like, okay, we built the feature that we thought we wanted. This is not great. We need to change it. And it's just that over and over and over again.
They're doing the same stuff. Like you brought up the God of War. Like, isn't it with like the Leviathan X throwing it and bringing it back? Wasn't it like one guy was saying, he's like, yeah, this is what I worked on for like 6 months.
I think so.
Or 8 months. That was it. Like, imagine you're doing that one thing over and over, like until you get it. Like, that's how.
Can you imagine
they get
doing that for 6 months and then you finally get it and you're like,
that's got to be the best fucking day.
Like the best feeling in the world.
Especially that specifically, because everyone around the world when they play, they're like hitting that triangle button is one of the best feelings in the game. Right?
When that fucking slaps his forearm is one of the best things.
To know that you did that would be a really cool feeling.
Right. I just bring it up because they're getting into the all kinds of just like with like jumping in a game. Well, how high should they jump? How long should it take for them to come back down? Right. Like that's a long discussion. Like we take it for granted, but that's a very like they have to have that nailed down.
There's even weirder stuff with that as well because of the way that building games works and whether you want to use like fake physics or whether you want to use real physics. So even like, well, let's like, you know, we're going to have this character. What is this character? What is this fake object's fake mass going to be so that it will fake react to simulated gravity in this world? Or do we just want to not have anything have gravity to it, but just like everything moves down unless it's attached to the ground?
Right.
Yeah.
And there's also like collision between objects too that can be wonky.
So there's so many little things that are just taken for granted as that are even super common. Like every game has you're moving. There's movement of some kind, whatever it is. And there's a lot of long discussions about what that is. What does that mean? How does that work? And like, so like the
movement thing specifically, one of the things I did when I was in school for game development was we basically rebuilt Lockout from Halo 2. And even though we got it as close as possible, it never felt the same because of the movement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a really good point in terms of like the movement it's pretty important to the flow of the game, how you move through all that stuff. And we all just take it for granted.
Right. Like even the simple, like a running animation and movement, if you think about it, like it's a cross department problem. Cause like from a game design perspective, you're moving at a set speed in a set direction, but you're really just like, you can imagine a T-pose model just moving without any animation. And that's essentially what it's doing. And it's the animation department's team to create a running animation that believably is moving at that speed and is reacting to the world around them in a way that makes sense.
There can be such like slight aspects of that are wrong as well. It's like, yeah, the character's moving, the character's running, and like, yeah, they're coming across the ground, but if you like fuck up the rate of speed versus the rate of like when a footfall happens, it can look like they're gliding. And you know, our brains and our eyes will see that, and you know, we'll do that uncanny valley thing to be like, something's not right there.
Yeah, it
But
feels
we'll
wrong.
see it.
Yeah, and then there's like sound team has to sync up the footsteps and make sure the footsteps make sense. And then if you're in a cave, does the footsteps sound different than if you're on grass in the field, right?
And then if you're in a
That's the
cave,
thing.
do you want to just have it that you now replace the regular footstep with an echoing footstep, or do you want to use some kind of audio simulation that like it will reverb based on the geometry that is surrounding you? It's just, there's millions of different little decisions that get made.
Yeah, like we were talking about Elden Ring earlier. I can't imagine how long they talked about like how fast should we swing this sword?
Yeah.
How fast should that go? Like for every single one of them.
For
Like
games that are
insults.
purposefully difficult as well, it's probably that much harder. Like it's you know, it's easy to make something like it does the thing, but then to refine it and tweak it to some arbitrary difficulty to be like, well, it's going to be this fast and this hard because
I think Souls games do a really good job too of like when you're fighting really big enemies, they move like believably big, lumbering, hulking enemies. You know what I mean? They're not moving really quickly and agilely, or if they do, there's something about their design that makes you like clues you in immediately where you're like, I need to move fast because that thing is going to move fast. You know?
Yeah, I think this also it's a good reminder of like why some games take forever to make. Like so many games are, when they do come out and they don't work as well as, like they don't get received well critically or by fans or whatever. Like the people who made it know the state of the game. They're not like delusional probably about what is happening, and so much of it's just time. Like there's a reason that something like Red Dead 2, which is absurd in its detail, was in development for how fucking long? I don't like forever.
I think 30 years, 40 years.
Feels like for a long ass time. Or like the reason, like when the God of War reboot did come out, how long was that in development? Like it's 6-7 years and stuff like that. Like these games take forever.
You brought up one of my biggest pet peeves when I see like people complaining about like the state of a game when it comes out, and it's like, oh, it's so broken. How did the developers miss this? How did QA miss this? Like, no one missed it. They know there's a timeline. There's so many other factors going on.
Yeah.
That they
Some games have the luxury of they can just make their release date whenever they want.
It's a business or a risk decision at the end of the day. Like, if we don't release this now, can our studio continue? Like
that kind of stuff.
That release is what keeps that studio alive at the end of the day, and they have to weigh that kind of risk reward of, if we release it in this state, do we at least bring in enough revenue to continue development and get it to a much better place to where it will sell the way we wanted to, or are we just going to let the studio go under? I mean, that's how close the margins are on a lot of these too, and I don't think people realize that outside of Nintendo and
it's a very
2K
short list.
It's a huge risk with every release.
I mean, to use Nintendo and like Pokemon releases, you know, for people saying, wow, this game's broken, they have so much money they could push it back. The pushing back of the game would mean the pushback of trading card game releases, the pushback of the anime release, the pushback of plushes that they're planning on releasing, the announcement timeline. There's just so
like
much
a different
more.
stratosphere.
The bigger the game, the just more insane it is.
At this point, like the Pokemon games are a smaller part of the larger like Pokemon circus that's going on.
It would be fascinating to get something that was at that scale of a documentary that followed it like this, because Psychonauts and Double Fine as a company is not the biggest company in the world. They're not big. But just to see how much goes into even a game of this size, of this scale, which is not huge.
But it's not indie.
It's not an indie game, but it's not your big AAA thing either. So I think it gives people a lot of good insight, because I would hope that some people would be like, Jesus, if this is what it is for this, like what is it for something like the games we've been talking about, like Elden Ring or your Breath of the Wild 2 is now coming out. It's like that was 7 years or whatever, 6 years after Breath of the Wild. Like, and it seems to be like, man, this is largely taking place on a similar map. It feels like, at least from what we've seen. Who knows? I mean, obviously there'll be new stuff in it,
right?
But it's like even they have that, and they have systems in place to where it's a sequel to a game we know. Like that's 6 years later. Like. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, they had to do some stuff to it, right?
Mario's been jumping around forever in those mainline Mario games. They have long gaps between when they come out. And it's Mario.
To bring it back to like earlier in this episode, like even Dead Island 2, I would love to see the documentary of.
Oh man, that would be crazy.
It moves dev teams several times and companies that owned it. Like, yeah, it would be a pretty crazy one.
For sure.
It's fascinating to see the documentaries for successful games. I would love to see the documentaries for failed or canceled games.
Yeah,
agreed.
Like what
like
led
Scalebound?
to this point.
That would be interesting.
I think a Scalebound one would be super fascinating between like everything, because we know like Platinum Games is a company that will they will put out like licensed games, build up funds, and then they will put out like their own love child kind of thing.
Yes.
Like a true passion project.
Like Babylon's Fall.
Hey, sometimes passions are not great.
Yeah. I mean, I would love a double feature of like Scalebound and Babylon's Fall. That would be interesting. But yeah. But yeah, that's Double Fine's documentary, PsychOdyssey, right?
It's all on their YouTube. If you just look Double Fine Productions on YouTube, it's all on there.
Hell yeah.
For free.
Free viewing. After you're done with this podcast, you can go check that out. So I've been playing a lot of Like a Dragon Ishin, the new Yakuza game that has been rebranded to Like a Dragon. This is the one set toward the end of the it's like in the late 1800s. It's samurai, but there are revolvers too, because there's weapons coming in from the west. It's pretty interesting in terms of its historical aspects. Like, I think if you're a Japanese history nerd, this is gonna be right up your alley, because I mean, it's not necessarily historically accurate.
I would hope not.
I'm not going to say it's, like there was a man named, well, it's not Kiryu in this game. It's Sakamoto Ryoma, right? I can't confirm whether there was a person like that in history, but it does go into like, how for a while there, the shogunate and the real government were two separate things. And the shogunate really controlled everything. Like it was kind of military at that point. And
samurais were bad dudes, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, except for you. Your samurai's a good dude.
Okay. Yeah. Samurai's kind of fucking sucked.
Yeah. So they get into that. They get into the whole the Great Restoration, and at what point does everything kind of coalesce into one government in Edo, which is now Tokyo, right? So they get into all of that stuff that I think is really interesting. And they even have a side quest where, like, if you know your Japanese history, Matthew Perry, not Chandler from Friends, but this admiral from America, is one of the first Americans to come in and like ask Japan to open up the country to trade and etc. You run into him in this game in a side quest, but it's not really him. It's a man named Monsieur Pony, who is a white dude, and all it is that he lands and he says, "Please open up the country," and then pukes because he's seasick. And the whole side quest is you finding out different ways to get him to not be seasick, including beating the shit out of him.
Beautiful.
It is still a Like a Dragon game through and through.
Very much a Like a Dragon game.
That's all I would want from it.
Yeah, it's absolutely silly. It is chock full of side quests, random characters, dumb things to do.
Tell me about the mini games.
There's a lot of mini games. There's karaoke, obviously. It doesn't have modern
look
instruments.
the same.
It does, yeah. It doesn't quite look the same. They do have a rendition of Baka Mitai, which is great. They have a dancing mini game. They have one where it's like you work at a udon restaurant and everyone gives you orders in rapid succession, and then it's like Simon Says, basically you have to hit the face buttons in order to like give them the right toppings on the udon.
Yeah.
And it gets harder the better you do. There's fishing, because of course there's fishing.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of like some of the weirdest. I mean, there's mahjong, I think, which I'm just not going to bother.
No,
I just,
it's always there, but I don't bother either.
Yeah, I don't understand it personally. I
know.
bet I could put in the effort.
There was like one time I was playing one of the Yakuza games. I was like, all right, I'm gonna figure this out, and then I just get page. I was like, fuck me, page.
It's like 20 pages, 20 plus pages.
Like, oh my god! I was like, I'm not spending 3 hours learning how to play mahjong. Like, fuck that.
Yeah. There's I think like a wood chopping mini game. So yeah, there's quite a bit here where you can. Oh, there's like farming in it too. It's not as in depth as like a Harvest Moon or anything, but you have your own little villa.
Farmer Kiryu.
Yeah. In terms of combat, I think you can expect it to feel more like a Yakuza Kiwami, like kind of more of the older school Yakuza games where it's like you've got your 4 styles. And I think this is maybe the one thing in the game that always makes me like kind of laugh in a laugh at it instead of with it kind of way, because I feel like if you played Like a Dragon games, the moments when it gets serious, it's very hyper masculine macho bravado drama, right? It always like every scene somehow boils down to 2 dudes beating the absolute shit out of each other
after they rip their clothes off.
Well, they don't do that in the samurai times, but they it's just 2 dudes beating the shit out of each other, and then afterwards the plot moves on.
I have seen that there's a fight in a sauna where they use steam to cover up your bits.
Yes, there is a fight in the sauna that is very fun.
Nice.
It's pretty good.
But I think what hits me a little weird is back in the in the older games, which are ironically the more modern time set ones, where you're really just beating people up with your fists and occasionally using the environment, right? It's more believable when the fight ends and the cutscene is like 2 dudes, ragged, fucking tired, like bloody but still alive, right? When you're using swords cutting the shit out of people, and then it ends with like no blood on them, they're just a little tired. I think that feels a little weird, it kind of takes away from the macho bravado, or like it feels because like when you see samurai movies, like usually sword fights, once someone gets cut, that's like the end of the fight, because usually that cut's the lethal one, right? And you're doing that a lot in the fight, but then outside the fight it's like no one's gotten cut yet, even though you're doing some like wacky weird spin move stab animation type shit. Like there's a move where you stab someone and then lift them off the ground with them on your sword. just pile drive them into the ground.
Then they walk home after.
they do, yeah. Even the random, schlubs you fight on the street, they're like, "Oh, sorry, we won't do that again," and they're totally fine. Like,
I won't bother you.
They chew on a few green herbs and it just like seals up.
Pretty much, yeah. But I mean, it's still everything you would expect from a Like a Dragon game. I think if you've liked the older ones, you will enjoy this one. It just has a new flavor, new historical samurai flavor to it, but all the mechanics are the same. The characters are here, but they're just different. I mean, they are technically different characters, but the models for them are pretty similar. Like you're playing Kiryu. At some point you have to fight Majima.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so.
Yeah, Majima's character in this is actually pretty cool. I like him. I mean, he's still pretty largely similar, but like his arc is nice. I'm almost done with it. It's taken me, I don't know, like 30-40 hours at least. There's a lot of side quests in this. There's definitely a lot of like, you just want to run to the next destination and you get stopped on the street by like 5 side quests. It's definitely one of those games,
So it's a Like a Dragon game.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm enjoying it. It's a nice kind of turn off your brain sort of game until the story stuff happens, because the story stuff is kind of engaging in this one. So I'll take it. Yeah. It's a Like a Dragon Ishin. It's out now, has been out since like Feb. So I mean, honestly, if you're a fan, you're already probably playing it, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Stretch, you have been playing some old Game Boy games.
Yeah, so I totally had the ambition and the plan to try to get a whole bunch of hours into Wolong, which just dropped yesterday at time of recording, to give some thoughts on that. and instead I have done nothing but continue playing Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga on the Nintendo Switch Online.
And now, is that the new game from Team Ninja?
The Mario one or
Yeah,
the Wolong one? Yeah. It's like Dark Souls, but Mario.
Mhm.
I'd play
So
it.
this was a game that I played a shit ton of in school, in high school and stuff. And I did beat. I know that I really struggled with some of the stuff later. Boy, I used to suck at video games. This game
Mm.
is like coming back to it as an adult with some idea of balancing stats and better timing and stuff. God, it's a very easy game. And
You're a
it is
pro
just
gamer now.
it is just
Right.
a nice happy romp through the Bean Kingdom or Bean Kingdom. Um, one of the key aspects of that. So I've been, balancing stats better, just, playing, thoroughly enjoying myself in the game. And then I got to a village where they sell the mush badge, which is, I don't know how they put this item in the game and they didn't think that it wouldn't immediately break it, but you can buy multiple of these badges so you can equip them. For those who don't know, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is like a very basic Mario RPG, but it's got the cool elements of combat that, like, the A button will always control Mario, the B button will always control Luigi. But in combat, that means that you can, even when you're getting attacked, you can like jump or swing your hammer and stuff, and it means that it's not just static turn-based RPG combat. That there's like more interactive element to it, which is really fun.
So you're saying it's better than Final Fantasy?
Uh,
Yeah.
I would say that combat is more engaging than Final Fantasy. It may not be as deep, as complex, but the fact that you're not just like, by the time you get to the end of a game of Final Fantasy, you can like kind of set up what each character is going to do and just kind of like mash the interact button. This lets you get a bit more into it. But this mush badge increases the base damage you do based on how many mushrooms are in your inventory. And it doesn't directly affect your power stat, but it's just like it's a base increase. And there's like a formula for it that it's pretty basic, but got these mush badges, immediately went and purchased as many mushrooms as I could. And then you very quickly go from doing one of the like bros super attacks that they can do. You go from doing maybe 30-40 damage to 200 damage.
And with how many mushrooms did it take for you to get to that point?
So at that point, I had already gotten a thing that let me double the amount of cash that I get. So I was absolutely flush with cash. So like I bought 80 something regular mushrooms and 60 something super mushrooms, and there's still ultra mushrooms that I like can be buying more of as well. But there are bosses that I've fought in this game today that I think I was probably stuck on for like 4 or 5 days as a kid, just between bad optimizing, bad rolls on the level up table,
No mush badge.
sucking at the game, no mush badge, that I was just having legitimate problems with. And it's just been like, oh, cool, I beat that boss in 3 rounds of combat. Let's keep going.
Nice.
It's always crazy going back to games you played when you were younger now and being like, God, I was fucking dumb.
Yeah. Like, oh, this is such an easy way to exploit the crap out of everything. And there's also that's the mush badge that I have. There's also going to be a mush badge A and a mush badge AA that I'll be able to purchase later that are just the mush badge, but
alcoholics.
more effective. So if I already
Yeah.
have all of the mushrooms in my inventory, then getting, the next tier of badge is just gonna like people beat the final boss of this game in like 3 hits.
Jeez.
When they've got it fully broken, and like there's a small part of me that's just like, I'm glad that I didn't experience this as a kid. Like now that I'm an older and I like want to get through it quickly, yeah, that's what I want. It's the speed up.
This is the speed run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
How is it playing it on the Switch Online thing? How has that experience been?
It's great. I haven't been noticing any framey issues. I do still wish that there was a way to full screen or like change the border stuff, because it's like I'm playing on my screen and the aspect ratio of the Game Boy Advance screen to my Switch screen are still the same, but it's like shrunken down letterboxed within it, and you've got like the extra patterning on the sides and stuff, and it baffles me that I can't just say be full screen. Like I have all of this screen real estate, I want to use it.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah.
That's like video like stretch wide settings and the ability to remap controls are just the two things that the NSO emulators need. Because I have not been able to stomach playing an N64 game because of how crap the controls are for stuff.
Right. But you can do the whole like save state thing on them, right? I think.
Yeah, you can.
So that's just like some extra cheese on top if you really just need to beat a game.
Early on for like the first 2 or 3 upgrades, because when you level up, you get a few static upgrades, and then you have a bonus wheel, and you can pick one stat, and then it will roll a roulette wheel, and then you'll get different upgrades. The more frequently you use the bonus wheel on a specific stat, the lower its chances of bonuses will be. So like I was also an idiot kid that was like, well, I always want to be upgrading my attack and not putting anything into like defense or health.
Yeah, who needs
but then
that?
by using the attack more, like I would only ever get a chance for a 1 or a 2 bonus. But if I like move to defense, then like only 4s and 5s would appear. So in the early game, when I was thinking, oh, this game is going to be hard, because I remember it being hard 2 decades ago. So I did save scum a few of those bonus rolls.
Nice. Perfect.
Like, always ensure max bonus.
Yeah, it's that 20 years of experience has taught you well.
You're a hardened gamer now.
A true
Well, but-
gamer.
I mean, but then now it's like I found this badge, and it's just like, oh, it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. And that's for any type of damage I do. It is increased, so you can also like jump on an enemy to start combat, and it hits everyone. So a lot of the combat, as I'm walking around, I will land on an enemy, and it will kill all of them in one. And it's just like straight from like overworld battle screen, they're dead automatically, level up.
Very nice. Classic. Well, now we know the Super Mario Superstars Pro strats.
That's right.
It's a great game. If you have not played it, check it out.
One of the things I always liked about it is that this was like they really started giving Mario and Luigi like personalities. Luigi more so than Mario, but Luigi's great in it, and how they just, there's always an in joke in the Mario and Luigi RPG games. Like everybody's just talking shit about Luigi all the time. They're like somebody will see him like, who are you again? Like, oh, you're Mario's brother. Like, that's right. Oh, you're the loser one. You're the one who's scared all the time. And he's like, oh, all right. Yeah, and he walks away. It's like they're always doing Luigi dirty, man.
They do him real bad in these games.
Always
Yeah.
treat him like shit.
Oh, Mario and the other one are here.
Yes.
Like, guys.
Like nobody remembers his name ever.
Green Mario.
Yeah.
I just got to the point in the game where Mario gets fed a mushroom that he shouldn't have eaten, and so he's like poisoned and he's gonna get turned into a bean person. And as Luigi, you're too scared to do anything, so you instead go to the town hypnotist, who hypnotizes Luigi into thinking that he's Mario, and then he goes on like a brave adventure, gets the thing that will cure Mario, and then he snaps out of it and he forgets all of it.
Jesus.
Like, okay.
That's great.
That's dark.
That's pretty good.
That's
That's
one of the best.
Luigi, but it's pretty funny.
It's super comedic, and there's a lot of really fantastic like retro Mario references in there as well. Like there's a dude in a who walks around in a cracked Yoshi eggshell, and when he attacks, he'll like get small, and that little cursor from the Yoshi games will appear, and that's how he attacks you.
Oh, that's fun.
I hope they make more of those. I know they it's been a while, and the company doesn't exist anymore. I forgot their name.
Yeah, because they did this
Radical
one, which
Dreams,
was
I think maybe
Mario and Luigi, and then they did Partners in Time, because the DS had the 2 extra face buttons. So A and B are Mario and Luigi, and X and Y are Baby Mario and Baby Luigi.
Yeah.
And they had Bowser's Inside Story, where you play half of the game as Bowser and half of the game as Mario and Luigi inside Bowser.
Yeah.
And then they had Mario and Luigi and Paper Mario. We're just because they were like, fuck it, they threw it to the wind.
Yeah, they had that Dream
Paper
one.
Mario's there.
I can't remember the name
Was
of
it
that
Dream
one.
one? I don't even
Dream
remember that
one.
one.
Well, because they get weird in it, and like you're in like this weird dream place where you let's multiply Luigi's, and like you're making a tornado of Luigi's as an ability, or like a ball of Luigi's that you're bouncing around and shit.
What the fuck?
Oh yeah, Dream Team
Yeah,
Dream Team.
for the 3DS.
that one's a good one.
Wild.
But what's the company's name again? Isn't it like
Alpha Dream? Yeah.
Alpha Dream? I know some Dream. Yeah, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah. October 1st, 2019, ceased
Yeah.
operations, filed for bankruptcy.
It's too bad.
Tell you what, they had a really good run between 2003 and 2019. That's like eight good RPGs.
They're all worth time. They're all good stuff. They're fun
Nice.
games.
Yeah, well, you can play one of them on the Nintendo Switch Online system, right? With GBA.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get more.
Yeah, maybe
I guess they
one
would need
day
to go to DS.
we'll be strong enough to emulate the DS or the GameCube.
I don't know. It
Maybe
doesn't
one
have
day.
the power.
God, it's been 6 years and they've finally got 10 Game Boy Advance games on it.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have the power soon because we didn't talk about it, but there's the leaks are ramping up for Switch 2.
Is it 2019 again?
I don't know, but we'll have new hardware soon enough.
Allegedly. We'll see. But I think that is a good place for us to wrap this week's episode of the TechRaptor podcast. We hope you enjoyed. And if you did, please leave us a review on whatever platform you are listening on if you haven't already. And hit the subscribe button, smash that like button if you're on YouTube. And let us know in the comments down below if you've seen PsychOdyssey before. And if you have, let us know your thoughts on, general game development. Did it change the way you view video games are easy to make or not easy to make? We'd love to know what you think. You can check out our socials. You can interact with the show. We're always doing some fun stuff. You can check out, I think we're doing a bracket, right? A March Madness handheld
Madness,
bracket.
baby.
Yes.
Should be starting today.
Yeah. March. Well,
Right.
we can't say, March Madness, but not trademarked. It's our own March Madness.
That's right.
Yes. But you can vote for your
Mobile
favorite
Madness.
handheld. Mobile Madness. We have a bunch of like handheld games. We got mobile division, the GBA division, DS, and PlayStation
It's
division.
pure handheld, isn't
It's
it?
all handheld.
Yeah.
Handheld and mobile. Yeah.
So with no Zelda games because they all suck on handheld. That's what we as staff have decided. They're not even worth to be voted on.
Yeah. And these are objective.
So many
'cause-
wrong opinions. Who hurt you, Auden? Who hurt you?
The whole staff
Himself.
contributed to this list. All I'm saying.
Mhm.
No Zelda handheld games made it to the list.
I mean, he's got a point.
I did not make any of those decisions.
But yeah, keep an eye on our socials. Vote for your favorite games out there. We'd love to see what wins. What wins based on the reader choice, right? You can always go to techraptor.net as well, where we're always publishing news, reviews, features, etc. throughout the week. But if you want more of this show, we will be back next Monday. We will see you then.